So I got that fixture tacked up. Definitely the most labor-intensive test fixture I've ever had to deal with. But hey, gotta make do. I had a bunch of these bend straps lying around, which hopefully proves that I can weld okay sometimes. But I cut some of those up to make that fixture. This is 3/8 plate with quarter inch backing strip. I don't really know what the bevels ended up being. I just knocked them in there with a grinder, but all that really should affect is your final bead count. But the way I'm going to do this, I'm doing it vertical up, so 3G, and I'm going to do 2 Z-weave fills, 1 root, 2 Z-weave fills, and a Z-weave cover. That's how they taught us to do it in school, and it's kind of my personal preference. I like doing weaves, but if you're taking your own tests or you're learning somewhere, you got to follow whatever procedures they're doing. It might call for stringers. It's kind of common too, but today I'm going to do Z-weaves, and probably not going to get a whole lot of good arc shots like some of these other channels do. Just haven't really figured it out quite yet. But I think more important when you're watching a video about how to take a test is seeing how the beads are sequenced and stuff like that. So hopefully I can, help out a little bit with that, show how to sequence these beads. Hopefully I do a good job. I haven't run this test in a few months. But we'll get out on the porch and run this joint out. I put up some curtains, got a box fan, got my rod oven, got the rigid tri-stand out there, got a little spotlight, and gonna be running with the Everlast today. Got my sketchy cord plugged into the oven outlet, so I got full 240 volt power. Gonna be running this all out with 7018, so let's get at it. So there's a fixture all tacked up there. Not really made for it, but about a 1/4 inch opening, 3/16. Got the backing strip there. Probably might want to tighten that up a little bit, but hey, good for a challenge. Got the tri-stand. Got these welding curtains from Harbor Freight. Just got them hung up there. Kind of fence off the arc flash a bit. Got a box fan up there. Gonna blow it right away. And gonna be running the Everlast off my oven cord. And got this rod oven off a guy on Craigslist. A pipe welder from Braxton County, West Virginia, who lives here in Troy now. Works for the Dayton Union. So in honor of Mr. Chuck's mysterious homeland, I put this Mothman sticker on the rod oven here, but works pretty well. It's pretty cool actually. These rods definitely run better when they're hot, and I got some pretty bad porosity earlier with some 332 7018s that had been exposed to the elements for quite a while, so I'm glad to have that rod oven. It's gonna be pretty slick, but just gonna set the camera up here and run this joint out and probably just voice over it because the fan's going to be loud and the welder's even loud. And there's cops getting called all the time here in Troy. There's someone setting off fireworks or someone's dog barking. So I'm probably just going to voice this over. Not going to worry about that too much. But get this set up and then we'll start running this out. I like to do a slide upside down U on these 1/4 inch root openings with the backing strip especially. You want to burn the edge of that bevel at least a 1/16, maybe an 1/8 inch up on there, but you don't want that deep groove on the side. So kind of doing that upside down U, that rainbow motion kind of helps it fill in so you don't get that deep groove. Good example right there. Why you definitely want to, strike on the run end tabs. It's gonna help eliminate a lot of the porosity that happens when you start a cold rod on cold metal, and it also helps prevent any low spots on your fills. Just it helps keep the welds within the groove a little more even when you kind of get the rod going out on those runoff tabs. Chip the slag, do a restart, strike above the crater, and then kind of come back down into it, trace it. You don't want to strike outside. Probably don't want to strike on the bevels if you can help it, but that's definitely better than getting an arc strike. That'll fail you in some codes. Try to keep the work angle about 90, a little bit either way isn't going to hurt too much, but definitely keep in scope and run up onto that tab there too, again helping to prevent any low spots. A little bit convex, but that's what you get with vertical up, but those toes are tied in well onto that upside down U motion. For the first fill, it's a little bit tight to get a true Z-weave in there, so I do that upside down U, that rainbow motion still, kind of like how that picture shows. Just hold the toes a little bit more, not too quickly across the middle, but just do that rainbow arc a little bit up at a time, and you can kind of watch it fill and make like those paw prints on there. I've kind of taken to doing that on pipe also, and it's just a little bit tight for a real Z-weave, so that's just what's worked well for me. When I try and do a Z-weave on those tight passes, it just seems to want to pile up in the middle, but that kind of rainbow motion kind of gets you something like that. Could have paused a little more on the toes, but not so bad. This second fill, I will move to a true Z-weave, and that's kind of the way it looked. Go up to the edge of the bevel. You want to be below flush. Leave about a 16th there so you get enough metal on. Kind of just try and get into a rhythm. Keep it as even as you can. Step up no more than an 1/8 inch on your advance, and make sure you're only advancing upwards on one side. And you can kind of mess around with that based on where you're standing. Where I am right there, I'm actually advancing up to the right, and I've found that helps me keep the bead a little more even, just based on the way I'm standing, being right-handed and stuff. If I try and advance to the left, then when I try and go straight across to the right, I just have noticed I have the tendency to either not go straight across, go down a little bit, and then it kind of piles up on that one edge. But that one turned out okay. Again, it's definitely tied in, but as you can see, it's always a little bit tough to just make it really nice and uniform, but that technique works pretty well. You get a little bit more space in there to do a true Z-weave, and I got about a 16th below flush there, which is going to work out perfect. Same motion for the cover. You can kind of see where I got that part burned away there. I aim for that. Keep it pretty tight, move quick across the middle, not too quick though that it doesn't fill in, and definitely let it cool. You want to let it cool because you're welding on the side of that plate there. It'll burn it out if it's too hot, so let it cool a bit, clean it out real good, give it a chance to set. And I don't point the electrode outside of the bevels. The center core wire of the electrode, when I come up to the side of the bevel, it's right on the edge of the bevel. I don't go over. I've noticed sometimes if the metal's hot, or if you mess up and go over too far, then on the next one you got to go over more to fill in where you burned out, and then it gets hot, and then you end up with a bead that's a lot wider at the top than it is at the bottom. It just doesn't look that nice. But let the metal settle down for a little bit. I like to go pretty tight. I don't really like that whole paw print look with the big dimes on there. I like a nice tight weave, and I think it kind of helps you control the heat a little better, and that's just the appearance that I kind of prefer, and just think it looks better. But definitely just have to get the feel for it, get into a rhythm, and again, it is kind of tough making it look nice the whole way up, but you're definitely gonna have to restart a couple times. I like to advance up and then come down and break the arc in the middle, so that when I come and do a restart right here, if I can get it, there we go, come down into the crater, and I go a little lower than on just the normal one, so that it doesn't leave a low spot in that crater. Like, I come all the way up to the high point of the previous bead and kind of circle around it, and then pause on that toe, and then I go back into my advance up. Definitely practice these though. I mean, being able to lay a slick weave it's just cool. It's a lot of fun, and I mean, it's definitely a good skill to have. It's pretty impressive you can lay these weaves. It'll look good on tests and stuff like that. Definitely something good at practice. This is one of my favorite things. And again, experiment a little bit with which side works better for you as far as advancing up, and that's going to depend on if you're right-handed or left-handed, if it's pipe, your position. And I've just found being right-handed, standing like I am there, that it helps me to keep it even if I advance up to the right and then cut across to the left. It just helps me actually go straight across. A little bit of a peeler there, that's always cool. Usually happens when the metal's good and hot, and when you made a pretty good even pass. Again, I restart in the middle where I left that crater, and then I loop back down a little lower just to get to the high point of that bead. You don't want to just hit halfway in the crater, otherwise you're gonna have like a little fingernail spot there where you could tell you restarted. Again, trying to keep a 90-degree work angle, and definitely going up on those run-in tabs and run-off tabs. This is really where you're going to notice it on your final fill and your cover. definitely take advantage of them. Certainly not the slickest weave I've ever laid, but probably passable. It's definitely under an eighth, although a couple of areas, I don't know, look right about flush, but looks pretty good on the undercut. And could have let it cool down a little in between, you know, these passes on the cover to help it out a bit, but not too shabby. Alright, got this plate here. It's cooled down, so we can kind of talk about a few things here. I got some sections marked off. This is a bottom, and not a whole lot of reinforcement there, and you're probably not going to be able to see this too well. Like, it is above flush, and there's not really a lot of undercut here, but there's a little bit of a depression in the middle where it's higher on these edges, and that happens if you go too quickly across the middle, or if your fill passes aren't quite full enough. So you could try and slow down a little if you're getting something like that. Like, you want it to be nice and even, slightly convex, but like, you don't want that depression in the middle, because if it's too bad, it'll be below flush and it won't be within spec. And then this next area here, I think this out of the whole weave is the spot that I like the most. I think it looks the best. There's no undercut. It's nice and even, slightly convex. You know, probably about a 16th or a 332 of reinforcement, which is just about where you want. And so that's kind of what to aim for. And it's not so difficult to make a weave that is within spec, like the whole thing passes, but it does get kind of difficult to have a whole section that is very consistent and like looks good, and your transitions are smooth, and it's just like consistent throughout the whole way. And that's what I shoot for. I want it to look as consistent and as nicely as I can get it. And like, I'm not terribly proud of this, but like, you know, some people might look at that and say, oh wow, what are you complaining about? That looks great. But you know, other people might say, wow, you know, you call yourself a welder. And I try to hold myself to a higher standard. So not a great weave, but just a few things worth mentioning on here. And then this next section, it's kind of uneven here. This side, again, you can't really tell too well, but this is a little bit higher, and then this is just barely like flush right here. So that happens if you're not pausing equally on the toes. That can definitely happen. And then I got a little bit of undercut here. It could just be the plate getting a little too hot, and you just need to, you can try turning your amps down a bit if you're like up half on the second half of the plate and it's a little hot, or just let it cool. You know, just take some time and clean those toes off and wire brush it real good. Kind of just give it a couple moments to cool off. But I'm fairly happy with it though, as it turned out. But those are a couple things, just a couple tips maybe help you out on it. You really just gotta practice. You gotta get the feel for it. You gotta see how it looks. Get your steps right and everything. And hopefully some of those tips helped you out. But I'm gonna keep practicing. Hopefully get some more consistent weaves. But that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Y'all take care.